Welcome to the debut of the Chirp and a Chair podcast, hosted by Jonathan Jaffe and Seth Davies. Today, we're joined by host and comedian Pete Latham as we pull back the curtains into the world of high-stakes poker. We'll be sharing unfiltered thoughts on some of the biggest players in the game, revisiting pivotal hands, and reflecting on what drives professional veterans of today. The Chirp and a Chair podcast. Let's dive in.
Seth Davies, Jonathan Jaffe. Just found out you prefer Jonathan to John.
I feel bad for all the times in the past I called you John now.
I've hated you a little bit, but, we're over it.
We'll get over that. Okay. How are we doing? We're in J-Juice, the final third of this series. You had a good night last night, Seth.
Yep.
Tell us what happened.
Good night. Got third in the 50K turbo for cash for 420, I think. So, yeah, good one to take into the main.
Did you get much sleep? Did you celebrate a bit? How much do you celebrate for third?
I didn't celebrate at all. I celebrated by trying to get to sleep as soon as I could. These have been some long days, man. Like, we've been playing till 2 a.m. a lot, so I'm just trying to get as much sleep as I can.
This show, guys, I call it a show because we haven't got massive mics in front of us, which officially makes it a podcast, I feel. This show's going to be a bit different, you see, because I'm going to host this first one to make it easier. But then, after this one, I'm going to leave. And the next one of you guys is going to host. And we get a new player in,
Maybe
and it'll
both
be
of us.
purely players. Yeah, maybe
Maybe we
both.
could interrogate him like a good cop, bad cop thing or
Oh,
something.
I like that.
I like that. You're the bad cop, right?
Yeah, John's too nice to be the bad cop.
Get some Sean Winter shades on you. How about hidden cameras to get a true fly on the wall, just kind of catch people on break, they don't know they're being watched.
We've had them in your room all week. Does it fill you with a bit of dread having to do a bit of a hosting because it's a tough old gig?
I mean,
Nah, I think we'll do great.
it sounds kind of intimidating, but like in the end of the day, we'll just start talking about poker and be fine.
All right, so I need you guys to help me come up with a name for this thing, this show, right? I'm going to throw a few at you. Player's Player.
What about Pete's Lounge?
Pete's Lounge is lovely.
Pete is never actually there.
I could just be lurking in the background,
It will just pop up from behind a chair every once in a while or something.
just checking on you guys, doing this a lot. Player's Player. No. Sit and Go.
That's kind of good.
That's quite good because one leaves each time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give that 2 stars. A Chat and a Chair. Or a Chat in a Chair.
Might be the most solid so far.
That's not bad. Shark Tales.
Shark Tale's kind of funny.
Shark Tales is,
Well, that's
is
not
all right.
bad. You're sharks.
I feel like for that, there's kind of a high bar of entertainment that the guest has to provide. It's like,
That's why we've got you, Jonathan.
no, I've got the least amount of stories in poker.
That's the least true thing that.
Well, they're not poker stories.
Yeah,
We
that's.
don't want post stories. We want all stories. If we were to drag someone on with the best stories in poker, who would come to mind?
I mean, Jason's got a bunch of hilarious stories. Like, and he's a great storyteller. He would be my number one. Nick too, obviously.
Yeah, I think those 2 guys come to mind first. Probably like Schlava is probably just hilarious if we can get an interpreter. VBV.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
he's not.
he would
here,
be
though.
like, what's that?
He's not
Yeah,
here,
yeah, but like plays
Yeah,
enough
we should
track.
get a Russian version and have him.
Yeah.
That guy is so funny.
He's the funniest dude, and there's got to be someone else that we just can't understand who's hilarious out there.
For sure.
Nick Petrangelo, he always seems like very quiet at the tables, but obviously if he's the stories guy, there's a lot behind the face.
Yeah, he's a guy that he probably looks very different to people who don't know him very well. He's very professional about poker. Like, it means so much to him, and he works very hard, and he's very good. So he's like very competitive and zoned in during stops, even, not when he's only playing, but around the room. He's not a guy who just sits and chills around the room and talks to people much. He's back in his hotel reviewing hands, but he's, we're both really close with him, and he's just like the funniest dude ever. He's the best, yeah.
You know what I love about Nick? How big his hair gets when he has a massage. It just keeps growing. All right, a couple more names. Cards on the table.
I think we've already beat it out.
Yeah, that's just a worse version of whatever the
Chip
other
in a
one was.
chair.
Chip in a chair, yeah.
And it was
Chirp in a chair?
Chirp in a chair.
Chirp in a chair. This is exactly why I brought it to you guys, because I knew you'd come up with something. So let's talk.
Let's talk.
Current situation. Jeju, we're towards the end of the series. It's been a good series for you guys so far. Started off great for you, John. Second in the 40K mystery bounty. I mean, it must be nice to get a good result early in the series, then you free roll the rest.
Definitely. I mean, best you can. You try to not like section off series to series because you're just going to brick some series. So it maybe sets you up for kind of disappointment. But it's hard not to feel decent when you're like, I can't lose on this trip. That one was particularly good because it wasn't like I was riding a chip lead much of the way. I was just like, I had 4.5 bigs when we snuck in the money. I scooped a bounty with 10-2 suited with 4 bigs. It's just like, that's a pretty cool way to make 80K.
It was quite interesting when I asked you how poker was going yesterday, and you looked sort of, you had to really search inside yourself for how poker was going, because you told me you don't really keep track week to week, month to month of exactly how you're doing that year. Tell me what you're thinking behind that.
It comes back as a weakness, but I do think of it overall as a strength, that I'm really good at forgetting how things are going. Like my dad will ask me in October, like, are you having a good year though? And I'm like, think above average. I'm not exactly sure, but like, yeah, I'm pretty good at being more in line with how am I playing, how am I feeling about my play. But like I said, there's a flip side. Somebody stiffed me 100K once, and that was a lot of money to me, and I didn't notice for a year. It's just, you do need to keep some track of your finances, but a lot of people maybe skew the other direction where it starts to affect their play because they're thinking, did I have a good series? Oh, I bricked 2 series in a row. I got to fix something.
And it's just unnecessary stress, you know what I mean? Like, you just can't be latched onto results for, 1-2 week period of poker and let it control how you're going to feel for the next 2 months.
Yep.
It's a disaster.
A lot of like the really good stuff you learn when you're younger about goal setting and whatnot just doesn't apply in the same way to poker. You can set goals about studying, you can set goals about volume, but if you have goals about results, you're misunderstanding what we're doing.
So that's kind of like the crazy psychological like grinder we're put in. Like this reminds me of a hand me and John played yesterday. This is kind of an example of how hard objectivity is in what we do, and how it's not like, okay, this is a clear result I'm working for. If I do this, I'm going to get there, because there's so much luck involved. But we played this hand yesterday where I make this huge mistake versus John when I had aces and you had queen jack. It was a situation where we get to a river and he bets, and I have a hand that's like almost virtually always the best hand, and like it's just super easy to raise, have to raise every time, try to get more value. But I just called. Because it was a hand where I won, it was a huge mistake that I made, but like having won a hand and not like maybe made some like aggressive bluff and busted a tournament, where that would be maybe a lesser mistake, but it's like way more costly in your own like psyche. Like this one just didn't bother me that much. I knew this was a disaster, but like you win the pot, and like it's really hard to be objective and be like, that was a massive mistake I made, but it won me the pot, and like I'm in a good mind.
Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't notice it at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't have thought anything of it.
Forget about the hand.
Yeah,
but it was just like
I could have gone better, but it didn't go badly.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But if you like whatever, 4-bet shove ace 4 suited and bust on the bubble or whatever, you're just like, that was a massive torch. I can't even sleep for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah.
When it's probably just a better play.
And you see so many people like the spots they want to check and the things they want to talk about are so close, where you're just like, yeah, you could have done either. Like, it's unfortunate the result didn't go well, but like, how much would you be ruminating about this if it went well? Like, not at all. Just was what it was.
Poker's a weird one compared to other sports, if you like, because like you play against your peers. A lot of them are your close friends, and you have to outthink them every day. Are you ever a bit annoyed at each other at the end of the day?
Seth, no, but I'm trying to think if there's anyone.
Yeah, some people. I mean, close friends, not so much. I mean,
and Mockery, maybe.
Yeah, definitely like some other guys that, we're not close with. But it's obviously just way easier to get mad at people you're not close friends with.
Yeah.
But it's not like I hate this guy or anything. It's just like whatever.
It also depends where you're coming at. Like, I'm somewhere in between a Triton reg and an interloper, where it's like, Seth, and then even more so guys like Nick and Jason, Stevie, have been doing this so long. This is their true career, and they've put so much work in, where there's some guys like me, and then, I'm a bit strange because I'm, 37, so I've been a pro a long time, but there are a lot of the guys who are maybe like an Alex Kuleb, Johannes Straver, some of the newer guys, where in some sense they're piggybacking on the work that the older guys have done for so long. Either way, this is their career, this is what they're doing, and when things don't go well, I think it can be a little bit more frustrating. I don't know where I'm going with all this. I kind of went down a couple of different tunnels, but in my head, I was thinking I don't really get as annoyed, but I think I worry more. I worry more that I'm annoying people because I don't feel like I'm not a wreck, of course, but I'm here a lot for fun and for a challenge and because it's really interesting to me and because I love the dudes out here. Right. But I know that sometimes like someone else might be running bad and it's a lot more serious to them. Not because the money is hurting necessarily, it might, but because they're more passionate about being the best. And I worry that like my attitude and looseness about things might come off not the way I intend. But I don't find that many people annoy me, but that's because I'm kind of one of the most talkative people at the table.
No, I mean, that's super spot on with those like younger guys you mentioned, that it just carries a lot more weight, you know, so like some people take it harder because it's all they got, you know. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's, you know, they're just completely all in on doing this specifically and getting great at this. Whereas, you know, John's obviously got his shit together.
I think that's a pretty hilarious assessment. I'll take it. Someone who wasn't, I can't actually.
I'm just saying we're at like different parts of our lives. Like we're both dads, we have families.
Yeah.
You're talking about kids who are young, who are, you know, we were there 10 plus years ago. Like we were young and it meant everything to us to be like great and get better and better. But like we've just kind of got past that. And, you know, everybody, at least in my experience, not everybody, but most guys, especially in poker, up until, you know, through their 20s are like very self-conscious, so obsessed with what people think about their game. You know, they so much want to be validated as this great player, where we're like kind of past that for the most part. And you can see that just with people's attitudes towards results and how it's going, you know?
Yeah, for sure. There's a level of lax that sets in, you know, the negative. Somebody criticizing it might call it complacency to some degree, and somebody, you know, speaking well of it would say, oh, they're more balanced. They've got a wider lens. And it's, you know, it's just a matter of perspective, which, you know, can't be fallen. But I will say this about the young guys, because they're around, you know, so many guys like you, so consistently, like kind of modeling the behavior, they're so much more mature than the, like, 26-year-old Americans were when we were 26, and like it's just, it was a shit show. It was a Wild West, and like I was such a cocky asshole, you know, through my 20s playing poker in a way that these guys, if they hide it really well, relatively speaking, and they're so freaking mature for their age. This tour, you know, and the high stakes, it matures you. Like Leon Sturm is 22. Yeah. He acts like he's 38.
Yeah, that's like us at 22 is fucking crazy. And I mean, to be fair to us, like we didn't have any of this.
Every time you win a tournament, you're the best player in the world.
Right, yeah.
Were you a dick in your 20s? Jonathan admits.
I wasn't so much of a dick. Well, I'm sure I was like kind of a dick, but I was just like kind of a self-conscious kind of wreck and like just like egotistical. Everyone's egotistical. I mean, I was certainly, if I looked back at myself, I'd be like, this guy's a little shithead. But like, I wouldn't say I was like particularly mean to people or anything like that. But
yeah, I would, arrogant is how I would put it. I felt like I was an arrogant prick. It was just like, there was just an air of, well, I could teach you a thing or two if you like.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Gonna have to watch some old videos of you, see if we can.
That.
Dude, I saw, me at 21 at Foxwoods. This is my posture. Raise. 1.37592.6 million.
That was the thing, because back when, before Big Blind Ante, there was always just a bunch of dumb small chips on the table. And like everyone was just like a young douchebag. They would make like, you'd use the most chips possible. So you'd never bet 5,000, you'd bet 49.75 with like 18 chips instead of just throwing one chips out.
Yeah, we could just get in 30-minute discussions where Seth's just like, I don't know, I feel like I shouldn't have called the river. Well, he bet 5 million and 5,000. If he bet 5 mil, you call. Yeah. If he bets 4.9995, definitely fold. But
feels a little strong to me.
Now we're talking about validation and getting older, how you need it a bit less. But Seth, you're coming closer and closer to that title. Third last night.
I was going to say to death.
I mean, that also. Slow march to the ground.
The crawl is real.
Hospice care here at JG.
What I want to know is, you know, you're making lots of cashes, you're making really deep runs. Yeah. What is it in that title that means so much? Obviously, it's the biggest payout, but is it proving it to yourself? Is it the validation with your peers? Is it the banner? What is it?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of everything. I'm here to make the play that makes me the most money, right? Like, if that means getting third instead of winning so much, like, sure. But, you know, there's obviously the most money to first place, so, like, winning is a big part of your actual earn, too. But yeah, I mean, this is one of the, I would say Triton's probably the only tour where I think like, man, it'd be really goddamn cool to win a couple of these, you know? Like a lot of people like WSOP or whatever, but just this is just really the top league. It's like the top poker league. So there's some validation in that, you know, if you actually get it done. So yeah, I mean, I hope it happens, but you know, a lot of that's out of my hands. I'll keep showing up and just trying to keep playing well, but yeah, it'll come eventually, I guess.
I think what he said, like, you know, the fact is, Triton is the tour we respect the most, and it includes the most players that we respect too. Yeah. And, you know, when you think about, you know, who you're trying to impress, whose respect you're trying to garner, it's here. That's why, you know, the Triton, in the end, I think, yeah, titles are relatively overrated, and, you know, the general public and poker fans respect them a lot more than maybe players do. But a Triton title is pretty cool.
Something you said there's really important too is that like if you're winning a WSOP or something, like you can win a WSOP bracelet even like in a high stakes tournament where you might never make a single decision against a truly great player.
Yeah.
But if like you're in Triton playing 100K, like you're forced to play hands against the best players in the world. Like there's just no way around it. So like the title actually does mean a little bit more in that sense. But like you can win a WSOP 250K for $5 million. And like never really play against a hand against like a truly top 10 player or something. So it is different for sure.
Yeah, but the variance in terms of first place finishes is just so wild. Like Ike for a high stakes boss had very few titles to his name before last year. Like incredibly small relative to how many deep finishes he had. And then just last year, he won like 8 things.
Yeah, exactly.
12 wins, like something absurd.
Yeah, and the thing about winning like Triton titles too is like the kind of prestige and validation of it, in my opinion at least, is like people that start stacking them up, you know what I mean? Because that means you've been here, you've had longevity, like you've played long enough to stay in action and like to win. So like when people start winning, okay, like I won my 3rd, 4th, 5th or something, that's like where the validation really starts to happen, I think. There's
a cool other side of validation too. I think of like Christoph, who ran absolutely terrible. It was when you're not winning at all and you're still in action, and you're not, you know, massively wealthy yourself. That means everyone has faith in you even while you're losing. You got to be really good because there's such a bias that creeps in when you're losing, where everyone's like, maybe he's not that sharp now, or blah, blah, blah. It's easy to run a narrative about why someone who's winning is doing things well, but if people still trust you and want your action when you're losing, that's the real validation.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's something that people don't get to see much, where like, I was like, who's like, a lot of people are probably, you know, poker fans are like, I haven't heard Christoph Vogelstein's name in 3 years because, you know, he hasn't been running well, but he's, you know, still been in action. He, you know, has a bunch of money from his long career of like high stakes poker success. So yeah, that's a really good point that's like a major point of, you know, who you actually are as a poker player.
And you've both won a load of things. What is it like when you take down a massive one? Do you talk to yourself in the mirror that night and say, we done it, man?
For me, like, yeah, it's like a super adrenaline-fueled situation, and it's like that's where a lot of reflection happens about, you know, this is, I mean, you gotta take advantage of that time to be like, this is why I'm here, you know, like this is why we're doing it, this is one of the great moments you need to latch onto, you need to remember it and not just kind of brush it aside. Like we're saying, like we've kind of brushed aside a little bit the importance of winning titles and actually getting first place and like more focused on the money, but like it's cool when you win. It's really cool. It feels really good, and like it's one of the great parts of this job. So like you should spend that time to really reflect and hold on to that memory.
I think it's a great question. It's really interesting. I've noticed. I feel like I've got, I don't know, like a social disorder or something when you win these days, because you've cultured so much of play well. This is I won a tournament in Vegas over the summer, and they asked me, how are you feeling? And I gave the honest answer, which was, I'm just kind of in poker mode now. I'll feel really happy soon. Like I was definitely happy, but like I don't even know how to process it in that moment. And it's not like, it wasn't even like, it was a big, Hendon mob score, let's say it was like 1.5 or something, but I didn't have a big piece of it. It wasn't like a crazy life-changing score for me.
To win, right?
Yeah, exactly. But there's this weird, like, you're just trying to make really good decisions and push a lot of the emotion out. This is where I envy the Recs in a big way, where they just like naturally just feel it right then, because they've been feeling it for a while, and now there's just this explosion of emotion. I got second in a tournament to a good pro not long ago who I could see it on his face. He won, and there was like doesn't know how to let the guard down. Like, he's still in the ring. Like, he's not angry, of course, but like not ready to process happiness. And I could relate to that. He just like, like, okay, I'm going to go through the hoopla now. There's probably some pictures and stuff. I have to make sure to be polite to everybody. For a lot of people, not, ready to feel your own emotions as a pro. Yeah. I know personally, like, my favorite is the Hard Rock is right by where I live in Florida. And when I've won tournaments there, I go and play table tennis afterwards, and I'm thrilled to go get exercise. Exactly. And like, I'm just like, great. I'm going to go be around people who know nothing about poker, aren't going to ask me about this. I'm going to feel great inside, but I'm doing something entirely different.
Yeah, because there's just this total decoupling, like, between emotions and the actual play, right? Like, that's a huge part of
the goal.
Being a good poker player is not getting emotionally attached to hands, because then you won't like be able to make a big fold or big call or whatever. So like, there's this decoupling, and then now you're just supposed to feel emotion all of a sudden. It's a very like weird crash.
Yeah. I feel like, I'm not married, but like, that's what I think of with a wedding, where it's like, you're supposed to feel all this stuff walking down the aisle or whatnot, but then you've got everyone looking at you, and, you've got social etiquette and all these things. I'm like impressed by people who can just naturally feel, their way in these public situations, where I think personally I'd be rigid and I'd be like, okay, I'm making everybody wait. What's going on?
So that's just a personality type too. Like, generally the type of personality that's attracted to poker, at least professionally, and guys that like make it to this level are not just like highly emotional, reactive people. It's just kind of who we are. It's just an asset to your kind of poker toolbox.
But you guys don't seem like you fit the normal poker player mold. Like, you're very normal guys.
I think that mold has changed. I think, like, where it may have been like a Lane Flack previously, it is a Seth Davies today. We're pretty standard among, a lot of the high stakes players, and it's really changed in 30 years.
More so than before. What you're saying is partially correct, though, for sure. A lot of people just probably don't get to know us that personally that often. So like, oh, this guy's just kind of a dud, just boring dude. But like Stevie's a good example of this. Like, Stevie, so to people who watch, they probably think Stevie's just like some robot, like, obviously one of the absolute best players in the world, but never really talks, doesn't show any personality. Stevie's hilarious. Stevie's a really cool guy. He's like hilarious to talk to, super fun to be around, like absolutely cool, like colorful dude. But like, nobody knows that because they just don't know him personally. So
a lot of it comes down to, are you trying to monetize your personality or not? Stevie's not trying to. Exactly. And then there are some guys who come off as very colorful, but like, when the camera's not around, when there's, a patch can't make you money or whatnot, like even some of the most colorful personalities in poker just act like normal guys, because they mostly are. If they're playing high stakes for a living, you've got to have some degree of normalcy unless you're a straight genius.
How does your parents feel about, do they worry when they see you playing for this big money? Do they know how it all works, or do they just sit at home worrying all day watching the stream?
Yeah, they have a pretty good feel at this point. My dad loves watching high stakes. He barely knows the rules of the game, but he enjoys just like kind of tracking it almost like the stock market. Like, look at this chip count. So he's interested in that. Yeah. I got really lucky where, because I did well in high school with poker, my parents made me try a semester of college. I asked every night if they were ready to let me drop out. At the end of the semester, they let me drop out. They understood I had a plan. They just trusted me, and things went well. So that obviously made a huge difference. So I always kind of had their support, and that was nice.
Yeah, similar for me. My parents, particularly my mom, just always let like me and my brothers be really independent. I was the youngest one too, so like I had 2 older brothers. By the time I was 18, my mom was kind of like, yeah, just get out of my hair. No, but she's great. Like, she always let us kind of drive our own ship, and was just always supportive. So yeah.
I had the same thing. I'm the youngest of 3, 2 older brothers. If I was firstborn, I feel like there's a little more like, are we really, right. There's that worry if your parents like, is everybody going to judge me? I'm letting my son become a degenerate, but yeah.
We've all got 2 brothers.
You got 2?
How old are your kids?
I got a 3-year-old boy.
9.
3, 9, and 4. I was hoping they'd all be 4, and then that would have been weird. It's not that weird. We'll move on. I actually met your boy this week in the burger shop. Has he had a good time? Does he like come in on these trips?
So this was the first one. I've felt bad in the past. He's always, oh, can I go? And I was like, I don't think it's going to be great for you. It's going to be tricky, and it's missing a lot of school. But this time we paired it with Tokyo. That was really cool. We went out to Tokyo to try trying to acclimate to the time zone, spent 5 days there. And then, came over here and had excellent time for like 5 or 6 days. But we had an interesting, I don't know if I told you this, the flight out. We get on a flight from Washington, Dulles. 20 minutes into the flight, the pilot comes on and goes, in his very calm voice or whatnot, explaining we have a complete engine failure.
What?
I'm looking it up, like, because we're still not like high enough up. I'm like on Reddit. It happens 25 times a year. It's 1 in 375,000. So like, there's no way he's ever experienced it. And he's saying like, don't worry, folks. We've done this in the simulator before. Heather, my partner, and I are just looking across at each other like, don't alert the kid. We'll just all die calmly.
Why would they announce it?
Yeah, I think they have to. I think that's the idea. Yeah, and Heather noticed something. She could hear when we when we cut off. She's like, something was wrong. She said we kind of plummeted a little bit. I didn't notice it, but so whatever. Fortunately, we get back. I'm thrilled, and I'm like, all right, yeah. And they get us on another flight. 5 hours later, the whole plane. They got us another plane. We get up there, 30 minutes, partial engine failure. A more normal thing.
Way.
We're turning back. Yeah.
This must be the Boeing, right? Boeing is the one with all the plane problems?
Probably. Yeah, it probably was a Boeing. I don't remember. It was United was the carrier. And I was very grateful after the first one. I wasn't that stressed. I was like, okay, vacation's on delay, but we're alive, so not a bad trade. But the second one was frustrating just because now you've got 300 angry people storming the counter, and it was very tough.
Partial. Let's just keep this. How far can it get us?
Probably find this a little funny. I'm at the counter working out, like, we're gonna go through New York, we're gonna blah, 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 whatever. And the guy next to me, him and his girlfriend, he's real steamed. He's really upset. He's not getting what he wants from them, and he's like kind of barking at them, and he's playing hardball. I didn't realize at the time it was hardball. He's saying, we're just gonna go back to Tampa. I like, just send us back, send us home, kind of whatever. Anyway, the thing was, they were gonna put us on ANA Airlines. And
oh, the Japanese company.
Yeah, United was gonna put us on ANA. And he said, I've never heard of ANA. I'm not going on some budget airline.
It's like an incredibly nice airline, right?
Yeah. So I just said, like, I just kind of like tap him. And I was like, hey, I don't mean to, interrupt or whatnot, but I've got the business class reviews here. Like, ANA says it's like one of the best, like it's better than United or whatnot. And he just kind of looks at me, and it's like a little bit of a death stare, and then he tries to like calm down or whatnot. Okay. Heather told me afterwards, and she's 100% right. He was always going through with it. He was just trying to get a better deal, so I cock-blocked him. Like, I screwed him up there. And he was just so upset that I totally wasn't aware, that he was, because he was going and sitting and pouting. He goes, twice he did this, take us back, just whatever. And then he goes, okay, what can we...
That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
You just blew up this guy's negotiation.
Yeah, it was so bad.
I mean, he kind of deserves it for being an asshole. Yeah. I'll tell you one thing, that like, people always say that, like squeaky wheel gets the grease, and you just got to be an asshole to try to get what you want in situations like that. The best airline like freebie I've ever gotten in my life was doing the exact opposite. I was going to Aussie Millions one year from Oregon. I was living in Oregon at the time where I grew up, which is in the mountains. It's like snowing all the time. And Aussie Millions is in January, so it's summer down in Australia, but winter up in Oregon. So it's super snowy, like flights get canceled all the time. And I was just on a regular economy flight from like Oregon to San Francisco to Melbourne. And flight got canceled. The Oregon to San Francisco flight got canceled. Had to rebook everything. Everybody else in there was just screaming at the gate people. And I just like got up to the gate and was just really nice to this woman because she was clearly just beaten down. I felt so bad for her. And she put me on business on like Air New Zealand for the whole trip.
Wow.
It was like a $10,000 flight.
Wow.
And I had bought an $800 flight or something. And it was just like, this woman was just like so happy that I was nice to her, and she gave me this massive upgrade for free. It was sick.
I don't know how they get through that, rebooking like 100 people, like who are all somewhere between angry and neutral.
Yeah.
I'm just going to bring it back to the poker room. We from the outside, we look out and see the money you're playing for and think, you must all be really rich. But how many guys out there are kind of, it's make or break at these series? How many are taking shots, taking a chance, or how many do we have more money than as the normal guy, I
mean, I think at this point, there are some guys who are just like, kind of scraping along trying to get there, but for the most part, most people are pretty well off and have pretty big pieces of themselves. That was something that, maybe 10 years ago was a different story, where most of the action was bought up by, a select number of backers. But nowadays, I mean, I can tell you that a lot of the guys in there sell no action, and, they have 100% of themselves, maybe some swaps or whatever.
It's a mixed bag, and you can, if there's a strongest correlate, it would be age. It's tough for the really young guys to have acquired that much wealth at this point, so they're typically selling. And the older guys, whether they're recreationals and they have money from business, or whether they're professionals and they've just been at this for a long time. But yeah, I mean, you can. There's a reasonable correlation to career earnings also. Obviously, that's not what people have in the bank, but that's, I don't think there's all that many guys with like 30 mil plus in career earnings who aren't quite well off. And at the same time, I don't think there's all that many of the pros who have like under 10 mil in career earnings who are terribly well off. There's a couple from crypto and stuff. Crypto's the variable that threw all of this into a different direction, where it just like some people just banked incredibly high and, have close to generational wealth now.
Yeah, or absolutely do have generational wealth, like having 5 million plus or whatever, like that's kind of generational wealth. And so that's a big kind of equalizer, or not equalizer, but. And we were just all really fortunate with that because we were kind of forced to be exposed to crypto early on, whether you were trying to do it on purpose or not. Like we all ended up with a lot of crypto, not all of us, but like a lot of us just kind of ended up with a lot of crypto just out of circumstance. Because that was how you could play online poker from 2011 to now, I guess, it was all just kind of forced exposure. So
just in case any kidnappers are watching, never had crypto, sells a lot, very, very much in line with the young guys, despite my age.
Jonathan, your book. Talk to me about your book. What's it about?
Yeah, so when Nick Petrangelo convinced me to come out and try a Triton and get my feet wet in high stakes outside of America, I went to Cyprus in September, the year before last. It was awesome. I was like, oh my God, yeah, I'm gonna do this. This is entirely different than normal high stakes tournaments. There's the app, so I feel like I can be productive while I play and like check hands around the room. The social atmosphere is awesome. People are friendly. There's things to do like play tennis during the day and whatnot. So it was like revolutionary for me. And I was like, this group needs to get talked about. Like, this is an interesting world. And I've always wanted to write fiction. And I felt like this was a kind of step in that direction, writing a nonfiction book about a world where I have friends and have relatively easy access. So I approached Ike and Chewy in January and, asked if they would be subjects for this book, and then went on to talk to Orpin and Alex Kulev and Yuri Jablewski, and so Seth did an interview for me, and it's been awesome, just kind of like gathering material to figure out what I want to write about this world, but something similar to what this podcast seems to be, just kind of trying to have a peek behind the curtain for people who are high stakes poker fans.
Obviously, you're really up for telling the story behind the cards. Do you think we're gradually going to see players opening up now? We get sort of the more talkative types. It was always quite a private thing for so long. We didn't know any of you guys what you were about. But that seems to be a general movement that everyone's opening up a bit.
Yeah, Seth can speak more to this because I wasn't around to know necessarily the reasons or why that particular shift has happened, if it has. But I think from a strategy perspective, Triton has done a lot in the sense that you see people's hole cards so often that you can kind of cobble together some of what they're thinking, so you're not losing as much explaining your thinking. Between the app showing, so many of your hands and then the streams, it's tough to kind of keep too much proprietary. So there's, maybe less downside to talking.
Yeah. I mean, I think the growth of Triton has really fueled a lot of that, like what you're saying with the app, and just kind of poker being more content driven nowadays anyway. It's just, a lot less secrecy. The information bubbles are smaller and strategy wise, like more just gets put out there because people build brands based on, at least partly, here's some poker strategy. Hey, I'm a streamer and I talk about hands and all that or whatever. Doesn't have to be a streamer, but yeah, I think it's just the growth and just the familiarity with everybody is kind of driving that. Yeah.
It's also, a byproduct of the privilege of wealth. When people get wealthy, they're more comfortable, like giving up a monetary edge to, engage socially in ways that, can be fruitful other ways.
That's something that, a couple of my closest friends, I won't say any names, but we talk about that a lot, is like them more so than me have gotten to a point where, like they're kind of at the top of the mountain or close to it, and you have to decide about some things, the way you behave or the way you decide to spend your time or effort. Is it all about trying to make the most money anymore, or have you got enough, have you won enough that, you know, you're starting to try to round yourself out into a more kind of happy, fulfilled person and making decisions based on that. And that's what John's saying now.
Yeah, Christoph and I were talking. He was doing an interview for the book when we were in Monte Carlo. And yeah, Christoph was, you know, an economics major in college, and he was talking about diminishing returns on, you know, when you just keep making more money, it's not the same. The jump from, let's say, 3 million to 4 million is not from 1 to 2 or from, you know, even 300K to 600K. And yeah, you have to reprioritize, and that can be tricky for poker players who think in EV all the time. And it's just like, wait, I was so acclimated to playing every Sunday, but now that's a terrible use of my time, relatively speaking.
Away from the tables, Jonathan, you seem to be good at everything. Every game we throw up for the players, everyone's like, JJ's the main man at this. And Seth, you were Mr. Baseball growing up.
I played baseball, yep.
Would you prefer to have ended up a baseball player, or you're happy the way life's panned out?
It's kind of a hard question, because for the longest time I would always said baseball. But, you know, actually I talked to Stevie about this recently. Well, he just said something, he had like a small comment that kind of like, I was like, wow, really? Because we were talking about what, if you were to be some kind of competitor, what would you choose if like money was no object? Say you make the same amount of money doing everything. What would you choose to be like your competition? Like what, an athlete? Like I said golf, and he's like, I would probably choose poker. You know what I mean? This is what Stevie said. I was like, thought about it for a while. Like, maybe you're right. You know, like if you play baseball or whatever other sport, like you're gonna deal with injuries. You're gonna play when you don't want to play more often. There's like a lot of downsides to it. So I honestly am not sure. If you could get to an equivalent level in baseball, I'd choose that because the money would be way more. but
I guess poker, you're totally your own boss. If you don't want to go somewhere, you don't go.
we talk about that all the time. Is if you don't want to see somebody you don't like, you don't have to ever.
I've thought about this a bunch. It's ironic because I was telling Seth, one of my best recurring dreams that I get a few times a year is that I'm like the last guy on a Major League Baseball team. And I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. You're 5'6". You don't play professional baseball, buddy. But it's like the dream just goes on. It's like, no, you really do. You're a righty specialist. You got a good curveball. They call on you every once in a while. And it's an awesome dream, and I'm thrilled about it. But when I truly, you know, think about it logically, for me anyway, getting to be a professional poker player is infinitely better than a professional athlete. Like, yeah, the money is quite different. So, you know, that's one variable that probably means a lot for a lot of people. But the freedom that we have, the ability to, if we want to compete at 55 years old, we're going to be able to compete at 55 years old. The lack of injuries, you know, just taking off. You want a sabbatical? Do it whenever you want.
Right.
You know, you get to kind of choose your friends. You're not like, hey, you're going to live in Kansas City now, buddy. That's what's happening. And you know, oh, you don't like getting on a plane and getting jet lagged 4 times a year to go to Triton? How about getting on a plane every other day? We have so many advantages as professional poker players. Like, I'm deciding to write a book this year. Could you do that as a relief pitcher?
The thing about poker too that is incredible is that it never gets old. Like the actual strategy, the actual review, it's never boring. Like it's such a complex game that you're never, you know, there's no end game to like, I'm gonna be a perfect poker player. It's just so impossible to get there. So it's always stimulating to learn. It's, you know, we've been doing this for almost 20 years. And it's never not stimulating to like review a hand.
That's where I've got a little difference. I think, I mean, relatively speaking, maybe.
Yeah.
I feel I get bored by poker frequently. I don't think I'll be wrong all the time, and I'll be interested in the answer or whatnot. But we were talking at the table recently. Someone was asking, you know, why don't you learn short deck? Why don't you, you know, learn PLO? And when I learn something new, I want it to have nothing to do with cards. I feel like I need to stimulate a completely different part of the brain.
Yeah.
But relative to like, let's say, being a pitcher in baseball, I think there's a ton of novelty in poker.
I just want to ask about backing, because that is one thing we don't hear about, and it's kept under covers. I'm not going to ask who your backers are or whatever. Are you basically in gangs out there, and the gangs are playing against each other and see which gang comes out on top at the end of the week?
Yeah, we have to wear bandanas for who you play for. There's Mike's bandana, Orpin's.
Yeah, we're blue.
Yeah.
The Germans are generally red. No, they're orange. No, it's all individual. You know, there are some guys who have, I mean, there are kind of loose groups, but there's no, like there's not really much cohesion in groups, you know what I mean? For the most part, it's just small friend groups that, you know, might swap, might sell, but there are some big piece buyers out there. It's generally people just selling pieces more so than like makeup deals, which, you know, there are some makeup deals, but there are some kind of big backers out there. I'm not going to say anyone's name, obviously, but no, it's not as defined as it might look from the outside. There's a lot more interplay between, you know, the North American people buying action and the German people buying action and other people buying action. Like there's much more interplay than you would think, and it's not like this group for that group and that or anything like that.
I feel like I've got to save it for the book because I've got permission from these people to use their names and explain all of that. And yeah, but
Stay tuned.
yeah.
Would it be the case if like a few specific guys decided to stop coming to these events, suddenly the fields would be halved?
Not have.
Not a few. I mean, if like 12 guys stopped coming, it would affect the next stop for sure.
So how do you get the faith of the backer, the boss? Like if you keep losing, do they eventually have a word with you? Step into my office?
Like we talked about, it's like like we're all watching each other play. Like these guys who are buying are watching. They're there. They observe what's happening. With the Triton app, you can watch all these hand histories now. So it's very much like opinion based, and this is kind of going back to when we were talking about Christoph and why it was remarkable for what he's doing is like he's been able to continue to play well, and we watch him play well, you know, and we watch people who win necessarily not play that well. So
you aggregate a bunch of opinions from the people who you believe play well on who's playing well, who's not, and you have some hard data in terms of hands, and then some of it is more soft data where you're just like, Seth, you were at Jaffe's table the other day. How'd you feel? Like, was he paying attention? Does he, you know, seem to know what's going on? You can't slide by, like, I think some of the mid stakes and lower stakes. You've got, I don't even want to say because it's not that they have worse ethics. It's just more cultured to like potentially lie about hands and stuff down there, where it's just like you're really worried your backer's going to cut you off if you lost because you got tens in against aces, as opposed to being like I lost a flip or something like that. Where here we don't think like that at all. The major piece buyers, the people who are interested in action, they want opinions of people who they respect. So it's not any individual hand that's going to, you know, get you backing or lose you backing. It's, you know, a compilation of data. And just like Seth said, someone goes and, you know, just crushes all year results-wise. We don't anoint them. They're not now a top 20 player. It could even go on for a couple of years. You know, it's similar to the stock market. There's going to be some guy clicking buttons who has 5 straight winning years that beat the S&P 500. It has nothing, you know, somebody has to do that. Doesn't make them good.
Yeah, there's just such a network of relationships at this point with how well all of us know each other. Both, and I'm not just talking about in the groups, like we know the German guys really well. We know the Asian guys really well. We know all of each other really well. So it's all just, you know, like John said, kind of an amalgamation of opinions is where the main opinions come from, I guess.
Stay tuned for the book. I pulled close to 30 of the top players for their top 5, and then 2 more guys, and set up a kind of rating system. So I've got the answers.
We got the
I'm gonna get another round of answers in June.
Sick.
When's it out?
I'm working on it. I would guess earliest 8 months, latest 2 years.
If these backing groups had a fight, who would win?
Physical?
Yeah.
Is there a weapon?
We got to run through this. Okay.
It's just like a UFC.
There's always a bias to think Russians are going to win a fight. That's
Yeah, they're hard.
Yeah, I think you rule out the Germans, right?
Yeah, I don't think they're very physical.
No, the Germans aren't like that.
They're finesse creatures.
Some scrappy Brazilians, but they're not fighters. I don't know. You think Webster's throwing haymakers?
Yeah.
Okay.
What if
We're throwing him.
By default, going to Americans. Bulgarians. Bulgarians look like
the Bulgarians.
That's a strong contingent. There's a lot of size in the Bulgarian crew.
Yeah, they got some strength.
And when the Bulgarians win an event, they don't even hug properly.
Oh yeah, it's all anger. Just makes them angry.
The trophy is, ah! Yeah, okay, Bulgarians, I'm glad we sorted that out. I just want to touch on, like, say, Henrik Hecklin this week took a horrible beat on the bubble, which was probably a 600K EV kind of moment. How do you deal with those moments, especially when it's not going well for a while, you're having a terrible week? Have you got techniques or ways of dealing with the lows?
before I'd ever heard of stoicism, I kind of stumbled on playing out worst case scenarios in your head first. I think, like maybe Negreanu would be like, this is crazy, this is the worst thing you could do, like power of positive thinking. But it works for me I can remember the biggest cash hand I ever played. I was playing against this monster who loves slow rolling, and I was all in for like 15% pot on the river, and he's drunk and he tanks for like 8 minutes, and he's done this before. He's a sadist, and he would just like have it, and and I was just telling myself, I'm like, look.
Is this live or online?
Live.
Oh, God, that's incredible.
Yeah. Jeffy, what do you got? And I'm just like, hold it together. You got to do everything. Stand. And I would tell myself the whole time, like, it's okay. You lose. You're going to walk calmly to your box. You're going to go get more money, and you're going to come back and sit down. And so same thing if I was like in Hecklin's shoes there. You don't need to play out how things are going to go. If you win, it's like you'll get chips, you'll feel good, you calm yourself down pretty quickly. It's not that. But I like to tell myself, like, okay, they're going to hit, and you're going to shake hands or whatever, befits the situation, and you're going to walk away and you're going to go read this tournament, or you're going to go to your room and relax for a moment and go do or whatnot. But I don't have any control at that point, and I just want to be able to handle myself the way that, is kind of commensurate with my values or whatnot. Right, yeah. And it's similar to winning, where, again, there's this processing lag where I don't think I'll feel it fully in that moment because I've put this buffer in, and I think that buffer is very helpful for the negative. Like I said, it's not enviable when you win a tournament. It would be nice to be able to process it all at once, but I think it's very helpful for when you're losing.
And what you said is just so spot on. Like, you don't need to prepare for the positive. The positive just happens, and it's good. Yeah. You just need to, prepare to handle yourself when things go bad. Yeah. That's the important part, yeah.
Kind of just want to end on like a pinch me moment you've had in your life. Doesn't have to be poker, where you think, how have I ended up here?
I got a pinch me moment. I sat down at my table, I don't remember what tournament, in the most recent Triton in Monaco, and Phil Ivey looks at me and he goes, hey, and then immediately asks me about a hand he played at the final table, and I'm like, am I in a real world where Phil Ivey's asking me if he played his hand well? I kind of rolled with it, but I was like, my brain was bifurcated in terms of like, give Phil the proper answer, which was ask Dan DeVoris, he knows better than me. Who was right next to me. But at the same time being like, what summit have you made? Like, this would be so weird. Like, anytime I'm, talking to someone who doesn't know poker or whatnot, they're like, have you ever gotten to play with Phil Ivey? And I want to be like, Phil Ivey asked how he played this hand to me. Right, yeah. And it's like, but no, I'm not going to say that. I'll be like, yes, I have played with him. Yeah. But that was kind of a pinch me moment. That was pretty awesome.
That's massive, yeah. The top of the game. I mean, I think he was the best when I came in, and arguably still right up the top now.
True legend of the game. Yeah, it's still pretty incredible that he's, had this longevity. I mean, for me, like, there's been a couple times over the last couple years where, not necessarily a poker player, but somebody who's like a recreational poker player who happens to be somebody like very influential. Like, I can remember a couple of these times where there's like, hey, like, really rooting for you, good luck or something. Like, didn't really know him that well or anything. They're just like sending you a text. It's like, wow, this person's really like my fan. Just a couple of those. I'm like, this is crazy. This is really cool. That's
pretty cool. I remember the Heads Up tournament, WSOP, maybe like 10 years ago, before Bill Klein was a name much of us knew. He played a couple, and he just comes over, and I'm waiting for my opponent, and he goes, I just wanted to shake your hand. I just really respect your game. I'm like, why would he know me? That's so cool. Yeah. And I was just like, all I know is that this dude's like a boss billionaire, and like, I didn't think anyone like that knew who I was. Right. Just a poker grinder.
Yeah, I guess a small one, like kind of on the same thing, was Norm Macdonald, R.I.P. Yeah. He was a poker fan, and a person who I was like friendly with was friends with Norm, and that person was telling me like, oh yeah, Norm like likes this about you, and like I was like, Norm Macdonald, like I watch Norm Macdonald's like podcasts and clips like all the time, just like laugh my ass off. Like, I love this guy.
Well, that feels like the perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining the show. Next time, who's hosting? Is it going to be both of you?
I think it's got to be both of us.
I would love to do it. This was fun.
Yeah.
Cheers, John.
I might just host the rest.
Cheers, Seth. Best of luck in the main event today.
Appreciate it. All right. That was great.